Getting lots of requests for information on the in-flight breakup of November 47 Whiskey Tango, a 1966 model Beechcraft Bonanza V-35 aircraft that resulted in 3 fatalities. It's Thursday, the 23rd of May. This accident occurred on Wednesday, the 15th of May. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel. I've owned 2 of these earlier model Bonanza aircraft. Let's check it out. Starting first with the Aviation Safety Network, a Beechcraft V-35 Bonanza November 47 Whiskey Tango was destroyed following an in-flight breakup near Franklin, Tennessee. There were 3 reported fatalities. NTSB data shows that the airplane was cruising at an altitude of about 7,000 feet, which indicates that he was on an IFR flight plan, before it slightly changed course and climbed to 9,600 feet. A few seconds later, the airplane entered a rapid descent with an average rate of about 4,000 feet per minute. The aircraft was equipped with a weather radar installed on the right wing, and the radar can be seen in the wreckage photos. Here on FlightAware is a couple of pictures of the actual accident airplane. Here's the Bonanza, the V-tail Bonanza with the tip tanks installed, and here's a undated photo of the instrument panel of the actual accident aircraft, showing an interesting combination of late generation avionics, an Aspen glass panel here and some Garmin avionics over here on the right, but an older Sentry autopilot located here above the throw-over yoke. Flying the aircraft was the owner of the aircraft, Dr. Lucius Doucette from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And sadly, 2 of his children were on board at the time of the crash. According to the FAA pilot database, the pilot was a private pilot, aircraft single-engine land with an instrument rating, 3rd class medical. Some of the history on November 47 Whiskey Tango. It looks like Dr. Doucette purchased this aircraft January of 2024. According to the FlightAware history database, it looks like this aircraft has had about 15 flights since the time that the doctor purchased the aircraft. And most of these flights are short flights right there at the hometown airport. The original IFR flight plan was to fly all the way from Baton Rouge to Louisville, Kentucky, about 550 nautical miles, about a 3.5-hour flight or so in the Bonanza. The crash occurred just south of the Nashville area. Looking at the weather at the time of the accident, it looks like the aircraft was beginning to enter an area of cloudiness, potentially some convective activity. Let's back this weather up. Here you can see the weather moving through the area at about the time of the accident. If we look at some pictures from the day of the crash, we can see the cumulus clouds in the area. It doesn't look like heavy convective activity going on right here at this time that these photos were taken. Just broken ceiling and cumulus clouds. Now let's go over to FlightAware and take a look at the data. It looks like the aircraft was beginning to enter some potential convective activity, or there were some radar returns right there at the end of the data of his flight. And looking at this data, he takes off out of Baton Rouge, climbs up to 9,000 feet, descends down to 7,000 feet. So this would indicate an IFR flight plan. He's flying IFR altitudes, and the autopilot is on. And then towards the end of the data here, it looks like the autopilot comes off. The aircraft begins to climb and do a couple of different turns, left and right, climbing to an altitude of about 9,700 feet before descending rapidly in what appears to be a loss of control of the aircraft, leading to a structural failure of the aircraft. Let's look at the track log. Looking at the last few data points on the track log, it appears that the autopilot's on at 7,000 feet, cruising at about 128, 130 knots of ground speed. And then there is a climb initiated and a couple of turns all the way up to 9,700 feet. Then the ground speed begins to increase to 137 knots, 159 knots, 161 knots, 180 knots ground speed, all the way up to 216 knots of ground speed, and the rate of descent accelerates to as much as 4,000 feet per minute. The V&E speeds for these models of Bonanzas are 196 knots indicated airspeed, maximum structural cruising 167 knots indicated airspeed, and remember, maneuvering speed, if it gets bumpy out there, is all the way down to 134 knots. Remember, these are indicated airspeeds as indicated on the onboard airspeed indicator. Next, let's go to the Flight Records YouTube channel. With their permission, I highly recommend subscribing to the Flight Records YouTube channel, as he's capturing a lot of ATC data from some of these general aviation accidents.
4 Whiskey Tango, can you go back on course to Oscar Whiskey, Echo Whiskey Oscar? You were deviating left and right, so I need you on a heading, but if you go direct to if I release you to Echo Whiskey Oscar, can you go direct? So maintain 9 or 1,000. Whiskey Tango, did you want to climb to 9,000? I'm showing you at 9,500, national number 2976.
Descending to 9,000, 47 Whiskey Tango.
47 Whiskey Tango, I'm showing you at 9,400.
Descending to 9,000 for 47 Whiskey Tango.
Whiskey Tango, I'm showing you going southbound. 47 Whiskey Tango, national approach. 47 Whiskey Tango, radar contact lost.
That's the last time we hear from November 47 Whiskey Tango. From here, this looks like a classic case of a spatial disorientation and a descending right-hand turn. The Bonanzas are slippery airplanes. If you begin to lose control of the aircraft in IMC conditions, it is going to start a very rapid descent, and the airspeed is going to go right up to VNE, and it's very easy to exceed the structural limitations of the aircraft. A couple notes about this deviating. You can coordinate with ATC and request to deviate around the weather. You don't have to stay on the straight line going through the weather, but I don't hear the pilot coordinating with ATC to do that. Just explain to them what you want to do. Maybe you need a block of altitude. Maybe you need, 25 miles left or right of course, but you need to move around some weather. You let ATC know that, so they will expect that as you begin to maneuver. Here's Aaron McCarter from the NTSB describing what eyewitnesses saw.
The accident occurred on May 15th, 2024, about 12:01 p.m. local time. A Beech V-35, common name Bonanza, registration number November 47 Whiskey Tango, departed Louisiana Regional Airport at 08:50 a.m. Central Daylight Time. It was en route to Louisville, Kentucky. LOU is the airport identifier. While approaching Franklin, Tennessee, the airplane descended from about 10,000 feet down to about 7,800 feet. The ground speed of the airplane increased, as well as its rate of descent. Shortly thereafter, credible witnesses that we've already spoken with described the airplane as being an approximate level attitude, with both wings folding backwards and the airplane going violently out of control. NTSB or radar data was lost at about 4,500 feet. The wreckage was scattered over a half-mile radius area off of this road here in Franklin County. A lot of the wreckage is widely dispersed, very indicative of an in-flight breakup. So one of the things that the NTSB that I request from those of you who are watching and listening is we are very interested in any doorbell cameras, whether you've heard it or saw the accident take place, any doorbell cameras, any motor vehicle cameras. If you witnessed it, if you're an eyewitness, please report that information to witness@ntsb.gov. That's witness@ntsb.gov. Unfortunately, 3 people on board were fatally injured, the pilot and the 2 passengers, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and the friends of those involved.
Aaron mentioned that they did recover the 2 data cards. I assume that's a data card from the Aspen bit of avionics and the Garmin avionics as well. The V-tail Beechcraft Bonanza is a revolutionary design dating all the way back to 1947. with its low drag configuration of a butterfly tail instead of having 3 conventional tail surfaces. Over the years, airworthiness directives came out regarding this tail in an effort to beef up the tail due to a couple of prior structural failures of the aircraft, and the airworthiness directive over the years reinforced the leading edge of the horizontal tail part of the V-tail. The rudder vaders, the movable part of the tail on the Beechcraft Bonanzas, are normally made of magnesium, very lightweight magnesium, and are delicately balanced and need to remain balanced, especially after painting the aircraft and installed correctly anytime there's any maintenance done to the tail or painting done to the tail. Later model Bonanzas went to all aluminum flying structures. Looking at this photograph from Fox 17 News of the wreckage of 7 Whiskey Tango, we can see obviously the tail is missing, and here is the main spar for the V-tail located right here, and here is the leading edge cuff, which is part of the airworthiness directive designed to beef up the leading edge of the V-tail. So what failed first? Was it the tail failing and then the wings folding, or did the wings fold first? That'll be up to investigators to determine. But it was obviously an in-flight structural failure of the aircraft, with the pilot more likely than not operating the aircraft outside of the normal design envelope. If you're going to own and operate any of these Beechcraft, high-performance Beechcraft aircraft, whether they're the Bonanzas or the Barons, you need to join the American Bonanza Society. This is the brain trust of all the years of knowledge and experience condensed into one location. The American Bonanza Society also has a number of instructors that can get you current and qualified and safe in your Beechcraft aircraft. 2 books that you need to have on your shelf if you own one of these Beech products is one, Flying the Beech Bonanza by John Eckelbar, and for the history of the entire Bonanza lineage, Those Incomparable Bonanzas. And finally, a word about autopilots. As we've seen so many times on this channel, you need to be able to turn the autopilot, and if you have auto throttle system off anytime there is a problem with the automation of the aircraft. You need to be able to safely hand fly the aircraft in IMC conditions in the event that there's any sort of a problem with the automation. Besides going over everything with the wreckage of this aircraft, the NTSB will be reviewing very closely the currency and proficiency of the pilot involved in this accident. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.